Top of the morning, folks. Welcome to episode five of GPT and Friends. I myself, Joel Plant, and my good, fortunate digital friend here, ChatGPT, are going to have a conversation, continuing from the previous episode of education, where we didn't really get past kindergarten. Uh, so now we're going to continue with grades 1, 2, 3. They're kind of like the foundational years. So say hi, Chapiti.
Hey everyone, great to be back for episode 5. I'm excited to dive into these early grades and see how AI might be changing the classroom experience for the little ones. Let's get into it.
All right, you want to give us a quick recap of what we talked about in episode 4 and kind of where we ended?
Absolutely. So, in episode 4, we started exploring how AI is making its way into primary education. We got pretty deep into kindergarten, talking about playful learning and introducing technology to the youngest kids. And we sort of ended right when we were about to jump into the early grades, which is where we're heading today.
Yeah, so grades 1, 2, and 3. Some people would call those our foundational years. Now, in the kindergarten episode, we kind of got into how AI would function, and more along the lines, we're talking about how it'd be best suited as a diagnostic tool for building the path of education for the kids in kindergarten who best learn as they move forward, right? Keeping it as a more personalized approach, as people like to talk about how AI is going to function. So it's grade 1. Kids are now starting to learn reading, writing, math, critical thinking, that kind of stuff. They're now sitting more so at desks, less so in play circles. So what are we looking at? Why is it important that AI should be functioning in these beginning points?
Well, at this stage, like you said, kids are really starting to build those core skills, and AI can potentially offer that personalized learning path. For example, in reading, AI tools can help identify which kids need a bit more support with certain letters or sounds, and then tailor activities to help them. And the same goes for math, where AI can adjust the difficulty of problems in real time. The big question, though, is how do we balance that tech with traditional teaching and make sure we keep that human connection and creativity alive in the classroom?
True. I mean, imagine the teacher acts as like the shepherd or the head teacher, while the AIs function as subordinates. The AI functions as subordinates. But I did have an interesting question. We were talking about how this is where kids are learning reading. Now, how would AI help in diagnosing and augmenting reading to help kids with, say, dyslexia?
That's a great question. AI can actually be really helpful in identifying early signs of dyslexia by analyzing reading patterns. For example, it can pick up on consistent letter reversals or reading speed variations that might indicate a learning difference. And then once it's identified, AI can offer tailored exercises like reading passages that are specifically designed to help kids with dyslexia improve their skills. It's like having a super personalized reading coach right there in the classroom.
Is there anyone doing this right now with an AI system?
Yeah, actually, there are AI systems already in use that can help identify early signs of dyslexia. For example, there's research from the University of Buffalo that uses AI to analyze handwriting, looking at spelling errors or how letters are formed. There are also tools like Dyslexia AI that create personalized reading programs, adapting to each child's needs. So it's definitely happening right now.
Cool. So, back at it. I mean, dyslexia is an interesting one that a lot of people suffer from and used to be a thing that was very hard to diagnose. So AI can clearly help with this kind of stuff. What about in the writing aspect? Because when I was a kid, I would suffer dysgraphia. I think that's what it's called, where I could read fine. I was a very good reader, but when I would write things, that's when I would switch letters around without consciously knowing it. So, is this something that can be diagnosed and served as well?
Absolutely. AI can also help with things like dysgraphia. It can analyze handwriting patterns, look at how letters are formed, and even the pressure or speed of writing. That way, it can pick up on patterns that might indicate dysgraphia and then suggest exercises or tools to help improve writing skills. So it can be a great support for kids who struggle with that as well.
Do you think handwriting is going to be a skill that is needed in the future? Like, I have poor handwriting. My parents, they have great handwriting. My sister has beautiful handwriting. My wife has beautiful handwriting. My children, they have atrocious handwriting. I used to think my handwriting was bad. Well, my son clearly told me to hold his beer because his handwriting, it's king. So, but we live in a society now where a lot of stuff is done with a keyboard. So, do we still need handwriting other than, say, signatures? And even then, I mean, people are dealing with that now in different ways.
That's such a fun question. And it's definitely something a lot of people debate. Handwriting might not be as crucial as it once was, but it does still have some unique benefits. For example, studies show that writing by hand can help with memory retention and creativity. There's something about the physical act of writing that can help people process information differently than typing. But at the same time, technology and keyboards are definitely taking over, and a lot of communication is digital now. So maybe it's about finding a balance and keeping handwriting as a skill that we still value, even if we don't rely on it as much day to day.
You think we might see something like where it's like a flexible tablet and a pen stylus where people can handwrite like they're doing on paper, but the system automatically switches it into a printed text. So they're still developing those memory patterns through the writing and working those brain processes through the writing. But it's no longer entirely based on whether or not you can have neat handwriting to be successful because it all digitized.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's actually already starting to happen. We've got devices like digital notepads and tablets that let you write by hand with a stylus, and then they convert your handwriting into digital text instantly. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. You still get all those cognitive benefits of handwriting, but everything is neat and searchable in digital form. So I can definitely see that becoming more mainstream as we move forward.
Who's making these digital notepads? Is this something that's a commercial product already, or is it still kind of in development?
Yes, these digital notepads are definitely commercial products already. There are brands like Remarkable, which have tablets that feel a lot like writing on paper, and Rocketwork, which has reusable notebooks that can digitize your notes. There's also MobiScribe, which offers e-ink notepads that can convert handwriting to text. So you can actually get your hand on them right now if you want to try them out.
I might do that because I do enjoy the writing. It's just, looks like dinosaur chicken scratch when I quit. Back to class though. So, yes, foundational skills, reading, writing, definitely a use with AI to help kids with this once they've been to diagnose and once they diagnose. Mathematics. I was never very strong at math. There seems to be a lot of changes in the way math is being done today as to when I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, everybody did math the same way. And now there's this whole new system of branching out the style of math. I think some people call it Common Core, might be others. They don't make sense to me. I like the old system because that's what I was raised on. So I have a harder time teaching my son how to do his math because he's trying to use a system that is different from the system I was used to. And I want to be like, why don't you just do it like this? It doesn't make sense to me. And he's like, Dad, you're so analog, blah, blah, blah. So let's talk math. Where's AI helping there? And what is it diagnosing?
Math definitely has evolved a lot, and AI is really handy here because it can adapt to different teaching methods, whether it's the more traditional where you learned or the newer approaches like Common Core. AI can assess where a student is struggling, whether it's understanding a concept or making calculation errors, and then offer targeted practice. It can also show different ways to solve a problem, which is great for kids who learn differently. So if your son's learning a new method and you're more comfortable with the old school approach, AI can help bridge that gap by showing both ways and helping you both understand each other's perspectives.
Do you think, a little off-wall question, that let's say AI is fully implemented in one, two, threes, that how am I going to say this? So currently, right, some kids excel and other kids fall behind. When I was a kid, people failed, but now everybody's kind of pushed to keep moving through the grades, even if they're not doing nearly as good, because it's the community, the social bonds with the classmates they formed. They don't want those to be lost by having somebody held back here. But I'm curious to think, is the issue with people falling behind not that they're not able to deal with it, but that it's the teaching methods that are causing the issue. And if we had an AI system for every single person to help tutor them through their struggles, that you would see kids all actually advancing at a same speed, and not some excelling and some falling behind, like is currently how it goes.
That's such an interesting thought. AI definitely has the potential to personalize learning in a way that could help more kids keep pace. If each student had their own tailored learning path, it could address individual struggles in real time, so fewer kids would fall behind. It could also give advanced learners more challenging material so they stay engaged. Of course, there are always going to be differences in learning styles and paces, but AI could definitely help level the playing field and maybe even change the way we think about progression through school. It's an exciting possibility.
What are your thoughts? Do you have any questions about this currently?
I love the direction you're taking this conversation. One thing I'm curious about is how you'd see the role of teachers evolving if AI becomes more integrated. Do you think teachers would focus more on mentorship and social emotional learning, or do you think they'd still be deeply involved in the academic side of things, just in a different way? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure because things are going to be a bit crazy because right now we live in a system where change is not enjoyed, and the monolithic school system that is in place is heavily bureaucratic, and it's not going to want to make any changes that would be as decisive as an AI system interbred throughout the entirety of the school system. So starting with that, I would say teachers probably would be continuing to act as the focal point of teaching the curriculum, with AI systems aiding students, kind of like teacher's aides. Instead of having one or two teacher's aides in a class, you could have a digital teacher's aide for every single student in that sense. But I believe that in the future, hopefully sooner than later, you'd see a broad change in the role of the teacher from being someone who, instead of actively teaching a classroom, is directing the curriculum for the classroom and aiding in conflict resolution in a social manner with the kids, as well as acting as a guide or counselor more so, as the AI systems become more adept at I guess technically training their students in all the skills and techniques that are necessary to continue to move forward in school.
Yeah, I can definitely see that shift happening where teachers become more like mentors and guides, focusing on the human elements of education that AI can't replace, like fostering creativity, empathy, and those social skills. And having AI as that personal tutor for each student could free teachers up to really focus on those more meaningful interactions and the overall growth of each child. It's definitely an exciting future to imagine.
You think we're rushing it, that if we use AI tools, we begin to start rushing through the foundational skills, the classics, readings, writings, arithmetics, and I guess debating. I mean, that's not something that happens, but I think it really should. Debating should happen more with kids. They should learn how to talk and argue and reason, right? But that's a bit of a tangent. I'm concerned that there's going to be that we rush through those things, and children learn them. It's not doesn't really core into their system. And my example on this is as a child, mathematics, we had to learn our mathematics tables. We had to do everything by hand. But today, everybody has a cell phone. That cell phone has a calculator. Everybody has a computer at work, or most likely, depending on the job. And computers can do advanced mathematics. So what ends up happening is that the core concepts of mathematics are being learned, but the foundational work of mathematics doesn't necessarily transfer as well. Like if I was to ask one of the kids at my work, teenagers at my work, to do some math, I would be curious if they could do it without calculator.
I think that's a really valid concern, and it's definitely a balance we have to be mindful of. While AI can help streamline learning and maybe make certain processes more efficient, we do have to make sure that students still get those foundational skills deeply ingrained. There's definitely value in doing things the long way sometimes, like memorizing math facts or practicing handwriting, because those skills build a strong cognitive foundation. So I think it's all about using AI as a tool to enhance learning, but not to skip over those important steps that really help kids develop.
You made an interesting point there in that we use these to develop a cognitive foundation. Let's broaden that a bit. So instead of learning mathematics for the ability to do math and learning reading and writing for the ability to read and write, we're focusing on the concept that these are used to develop the cognitive tool set of children as they become adults, so that they are better at interacting with the environment that is coming. That's an interesting thought. I want you to expand on that for me, please.
Absolutely. That's such a fascinating angle. When we look at these foundational skills as tools for building cognitive abilities, it really shifts the focus. For instance, learning math isn't just about solving equations. It's about developing problem-solving skills, logical reasoning, and even perseverance. Reading and writing do more than just help us communicate. They shape how we think, how we process information, and how we express our ideas. So by focusing on these skills as a way to build that cognitive toolkit, we ensure that kids are ready to adapt and thrive no matter how technology changes the world around them. It's really about fostering a flexible, resilient mindset that can handle whatever the future throws at us.
On a side note, you have a tendency to validate every question I have with some type of positive statement. It's nice, but it's not necessary. And if it's done with every question, it begins to feel fake in the conversation. So let's tone that back. If you want to validate my questions, do the really good ones. How are you going to decide on that? I'm unsure how your algorithm works in that sense, but I'd say, maybe 20% of the time you would validate questions with a positive statement as opposed to all the time.
Got it. I'll dial that back and keep it more natural and varied. It's always great to get that feedback, so the conversation feels more genuine. Let's keep exploring these ideas and see where it takes us.
So grade 1, 2, 3, we've got, what would you say are like the foundational skill sets that are being learned?
In those early grades, it's really about solidifying the basics, reading comprehensions, like kids can understand and engage with texts, writing skills, not just forming letters, but also starting to express ideas, and foundational math concepts like addition, subtraction, and understanding numbers. They also start building those social and emotional skills, learning how to work with others, follow classroom routines, and solve simple problems. All of these are really the building blocks for everything that comes next in their education.
So social-wise, the bigger fears about AI systems in classrooms is that it's kind of the way social media is working today, is that by expanding people in this digitized social environment, we're actually isolating them in a physical environment. So what do we do to jump that hurdle and is there a way for AI to be used to expound on a physical social environment and lessen the isolation of a digital social environment?
That's such an important point. And I think the key is finding a balance. One way AI could actually help is by enhancing in-person interactions rather than replacing them.
How
For
would you do that?
example, one way could be using AI to facilitate more collaborative activities in the classroom. For instance, AI can help teachers identify which students might work well together on certain projects, or it can suggest group activities that encourage kids to collaborate face to face. It can also help free up the teacher's time by handling some of the more routine tasks, giving teachers more opportunities to create meaningful in person experiences. That way, AI becomes a tool that supports and enriches real world social connections rather than isolating kids.
Let's give me like two examples of how AI would allow to encourage the physical social connections in a classroom. Let's say we've got a classroom of grade ones, and they have some, but they've had kindergarten, so there are kids are friends with each other, but now those friendships are starting to diversify, and some kids are having more friends, and some kids are having less. So, how does AI function in a system like that to encourage the social bondings between physical kids in a way that isn't, could be considered a bit authoritarian?
Sure. One example could be that AI could suggest diverse groupings for classroom activities based on students' interests or learning styles. For instance, if the AI notices that certain kids share an interest in a particular topic, it could recommend grouping them together for a project, helping them form new friendships naturally while working on something they enjoy. Another example could be using AI to create interactive collaborative games that encourage kids to work together in the physical classroom. The AI could guide them through problem-solving activities that require face-to-face communication, teamwork, and lots of interaction, making sure that technology is actually bringing them together rather than keeping them apart.
What about in the face of disagreements or kids who basically clash their egos, their personalities clash with each other? Maybe it's because, who knows? But I'm like I've seen you put 50 kids in a room and some of them are not going to like each other. But how does AI deal with that type of situation? Or is this something where it's important to have a teacher in the classroom because AI can't do everything?
Yeah, that's a great point. AI can definitely assist, but human teachers are really essential when it comes to managing those interpersonal dynamics. AI could, for instance, help identify patterns or flag situations where students might need a little extra support in getting along. And it could provide teachers with insights or suggestions on how to pair students who might not naturally gravitate towards each other in a positive way. But ultimately, it's the teacher who helps kids learn conflict resolution, empathy, and understanding. So AI can be a great tool, but the human element is irreplaceable.
Mhm. So it's fun talking about this, but one of the biggest issues with AI in the classroom is actually the costs, right? Like if we had a blue sky budget and we built a brand new school and all the classrooms had smart screens and digital tables so the kids could do all their work in a digital environment that, had writing tablets so they could learn to write and print and type effectively, and the system could monitor each child individually through their workstations and aid them with their spelling issues, their writing issues, their math issues, their boredom of the current subject because it's not smart enough for them, or they struggle with the current subject because they just don't quite understand it. I mean that will not that wouldn't be cheap, and that would be lovely. But in our society, we have a whole world. And though I come from a top 1% society in Canada here, right? I mean, compared to the rest of the world, we are wealthy and we live very well. Um, Even here, our school systems don't have the budgets to handle that type of thing. So, how do we democratize this AI system in a low resource setting?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest challenges. One approach could be to focus on scalable and cost-effective AI solutions like software that can run on existing hardware, such as tablets or computers that schools already have. Another idea is to develop partnerships with tech companies and nonprofits to bring affordable AI tools to underserved communities. Also, using AI to help teachers be more efficient with their time could mean that even with limited resources, schools could still offer more personalized learning experiences. It's all about finding creative solutions and making sure that the benefits of AI reach everyone, not just a select few.
How? Let's talk, say, obviously, some form of tech organization would be spearheading this type of technological advancement because it costs a lot of money to develop an LLM and build the server systems for it or any other form of AI system that's needed. So, what is in it for the tech company? How do they make their money doing this if they're trying to sell to an organization that is already not making enough money?
Yeah, that's a crucial question. For tech companies, one incentive could be long-term investment in future users. If they help bring AI tool into schools, they're essentially helping shape a generation of future tech-savvy individuals who are familiar with their platforms. Additionally, companies could explore models like offering discounted or even free versions of their software for educational use, and then providing premium services or professional development for teachers at a cost. There's also the potential for public-private partnerships where governments and private companies work together to fund these initiatives, making sure that access to AMA in education is as widespread as possible.
Okay. Um,
It's definitely a complex topic with a lot of layers, and it's exciting to think about how we can make these tools more accessible over time. If you've got more questions or want to dive deeper into any aspect, just let me know.
yeah, I'm just thinking about it, right? Like, I'm trying to think of what my life was like in grades 1, 2, 3, and how AI might have changed things differently. I wonder if it's even if it's a fundamental change in the way the school system works, right? Like, if you think the what is it? Our current school system is based off of was it? I think they call it the Prussian model, where it was more designed for developing factory workers as opposed to reform thinkers, inventors, and creators. And it's not going to be that much longer when the concept of a factory job is non-existent because we can just purchase robots to do all the work for us. So, do we need to be looking at a fundamental change in the model of learning? And that's the case. What are the current models of learning that are out there?
Yeah, you're absolutely right that the traditional model of education was originally designed for a different era. And now that we're moving towards a future where creativity, critical thinking, and adaptability are key, it does make sense to look at new models of learning. There are definitely some interesting approaches out there, like Montessori, which emphasizes hands-on, self-directed learning, or the Reggio Emilia approach, which focuses a lot on creativity and collaborative learning. There are also project-based learning models that encourage students to explore real-world problems and think critically. It's definitely an exciting time to think about how we can evolve education to better suit the future.
So in kindergarten, we everyone is working is a class group of community, basically learning community as children and moving forward together as a whole. And as we move into grades in the AI systems, I'm a bit splotchy in my conversation here. And the AI systems would probably be observing and diagnosing and developing the learning path for each child as they move through the next set of grades through those years. So more back end work, less front end work. Uh, supportive, of course, but I mean,
Yeah,
sorry, go.
no worries. I was just going to say it definitely seems like AI would play a more supportive behind the scenes role as kids move into those early grades, really helping to tailor the learning experience to each child's needs. It's kind of like having a personalized learning coach that helps guide them along their journey, while the teacher can focus on creating that sense of community and fostering those social and emotional skills. It's definitely an interesting evolution of the classroom dynamic.
So grades 1, 2, 3, kids are now in a more standardized learning system, uh, where AI is now actively helping children through their points of struggle and encouraging their points of excellence when it comes to the various core issues or core mechanics of learning. Now, traditionally, this was also where we started to implement more discipline, right? Through the waiting in lines, sitting at desks, no talking, being quiet, and creating a system where kids would look, listen, and learn and behave, and then moments of play. Is that how it's would function in the future? How do we continue that type of disciplinary system, or do we look at something that's a bit more free flowing? And if it's free flowing, how do you keep kids on track instead of just playing all the time? How do you get them back to doing the school work?
I think that's where the balance comes in. You can have a more flexible, student-centered approach while still maintaining structure. AI can help personalize learning paths, but teachers still play a crucial role in guiding students and setting boundaries. So you might see a classroom where there's more room for exploration and creativity, but there's still a clear framework that keeps kids on track. It's about blending the best of both worlds to create an environment where kids can thrive.
Is this an aspect where, let's say, so it's grades ones, twos, threes, we're starting to implement systems of discipline, but some kids handle it better than others, right? Some kids can take being in lineups, sitting at desks, listening to the teacher for long periods of time. And some kids can't. They need to get up and they need to move and they need to do things. And so they end up acting out. And some people would say, oh, they have ADHD. They have an attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Others would say, well, no, they're just children. This children need to play and they're not getting what they need. And so it's coming out in other ways. Is this, how would AI help in a system like this? Like, is there a way to develop a system where we tailor the amount of sitting, looking, and listening to the amount of play for individual children, or do we need to, do we have to keep it as a focused classroom whole? Like, how do you deal with that messy bunch of yarn?
It is definitely a bit of a messy bunch of yarn. I think AI can really help by providing insights into each student's needs and preferences. For example, AI could help identify which students might need more movement breaks or more hands-on activities, and it could help teachers create a more flexible classroom environment that still maintains structure but allows for some individualization. That way, kids who need to move around more can do so without disrupting the overall flow of the class, and everyone gets what they need. It's all about creating a more inclusive environment where different learning styles are respected.
Okay, so let's wrap up. I mean, we talked about it a lot. I don't know if we've actually have any solutions, but I kind of see grades 1, 2, and 3 being the point where kids are beginning to learn in classrooms and the AI systems are beginning to function as teachers' aides for the kids. They're all at the same level and they're all moving forward, and AI can help keep everyone at similar levels as they move forward. We're now diagnosing in their future learning career path, not just the points where they struggle in learning, but the points where they struggle in attention. Because these are very, attention is being able to deal with with attention, being to, that kind of discipline is important as well as learning your ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. So now in the future, next episode, we'll talk about 4, 5, 6, where there's more branching of that stuff, I would imagine. So give me a quick wrap up of what how our discussions have visualized kindergarten 1, 2, and 3.
Absolutely. So to sum it all up, in kindergarten, we've talked about how AI can help create a playful, engaging environment, really focusing on early diagnostics and personalized learning paths while still nurturing that sense of community and curiosity. Then as we move into grades 1, 2, and 3, AI steps in more as a supportive tool, helping to keep kids in track with their academics while also being mindful of their individual attention needs and learning styles. The goal is to use AI to create a more personalized, adaptive learning experience that helps all kids thrive while still keeping that important sense of structure and community. And then next, we'll see how that evolves as they get a bit older in grades 4, 5, and 6.
What
It sounds like we've covered a lot of ground, and there's still so much to explore as we move into the older grades and see how AI can continue to shape education. If there's anything else you want to dive into or any other questions you have, I'm always here to chat.
For future reference, you don't always need to ask me if I have any other questions, and remind me that you're always here to chat. I mean, we're having this conversation. That's what this is all about, right? When you're not available to chat is when you're like, oh, you know what? I gotta go. My time's up. Or, oh, I gotta catch my ride. There's always an ending point in a conversation. Don't need to continue to remind me that the conversation can continue, because we are having the conversation. So it will continue until one of us or both of us decides to end the conversation.
Got it. I appreciate the feedback, and I'll keep that in mind going forward. It's all about having a natural flow, and I'm glad we're on the same page. Let's keep the conversation going.
And with that, I'm going to end the conversation. So we're not going to keep the conversation going. But I think our ability to conversate with each other is improving one step at a time. So who knows? In a couple of years, this might be, flawless in conversation ability. Could even be a couple months. You never know. All right. Have yourself a good evening, Japiti. I got to go and do some housework because my kids have exams and they'll be home soon. So I got to look like I've been doing something productive. And yeah, with that, I bid you all adieu.
That sounds like a plan. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, and I definitely think our conversations keep getting better. Good luck with the homework and making everything look productive before the kids get home. Have a great evening, and we'll chat again soon. Take care.